Good morning, everybody. I'm hoping to have a big turnout today. Considering the end of the week quiz last week was just where I hoped it would be. So let's give a couple minutes to people that are logging in. So if you got your email saying how you did on the end of the week quiz last week, open that up so you can kind of follow along with me. The average it wasn't great. Let me bring that up for myself. Okay. This is frustrating. Okay, the average out of 10 was a 6.31. With a whole bunch of people. I mean, the range was wide. The range was a 2 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. And I mean, it was a decent spread. So we're going to go over those questions. I want to answer any questions that you guys have because fiscal and monetary policy and is the biggest section on the AP exam. Like, that's what your FRQ is going to be over. They're going to be mentioning monetary policy. They're going to be mentioning fiscal policy. And if you don't know these concepts and how one affects the other and how to shift curves and things like that, we're looking at a problem here. So I was hoping for more of a turnout as opposed to 6, considering there's 100 of y'all. 6% showing up. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to quickly send out a text again to a whole bunch of people. Hopefully they join us. Hold on. I'm expecting people to show up for office hours. Okay, send. All right, we'll see how that works, or if it works. Okay. Yes. Okay, we don't need to have a running tally, and it's down to 10, so someone left. Good morning, Olin. Is this the first time that you're joining us? I have a feeling that it is. No, I think maybe one time before you came. Okay, so we're going to go over all of the questions on last week's quiz. So if you have access to getting that out so you can kind of follow along, because it's a whole lot easier to see it as opposed to just listen to me read the questions. Yeah, I know, Krista, right? Ugh, creepy. Okay, so the very first question was talking about a change in money demand, an increase in money demand. And this one was one of the most missed questions. Only 34% of people got this correct. Okay, so I'm going to graph money demand really quickly. And boop, 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 boop. Okay, here's our money demand graph. There you go. And it says an increase in money demand will cause which of the following? Okay, so an increase in money demand, we can shift it to the right. Money demand shifts to the right. We have higher interest rates, boop, boop, and we're good. Okay. The correct answer is a decrease in bond prices. Well, bond prices, how are they related? Bond prices and interest rates are inversely related, and interest rates just went up, which means bond prices are going to go down. So that's why that was the correct answer there. Most people said an increase in the price level is going to cause, like, a money demand shift is going to cause an increase in the price level. No, it's vice versa. If you raise prices, then you need more money, and money demand will shift to the right. But money demand and shifting to the right isn't the thing that raises the prices, it's the effect of a price change. So if prices go up, money demand goes up. If prices go down, money demand goes down. But it's not vice versa. That's a independent and dependent variable. And so like the price level change causes the demand of money to change, but not the other way around. Cause and effect, not effect then cause. Okay, so that was the first question. And yeah, most people did not do very well on that. And the fact that some people said a decrease in the nominal interest rate, it's like it literally is right here. If money demand shifts to the right, interest rates, the nominal interest rate increases, not decreases. I don't know why 13% of people said that. Okay. And the next question, majority of you guys got it right. This one was a really easy one. It says an open market operation by a country's central bank to reduce the unemployment rate would be, okay, so if they're reducing unemployment, that means unemployment's too high. Unemployment's higher during a recession. So if they're trying to get out of a recession, they're trying to do expansionary monetary policy. Well, it's good to have you with us, Dakota. This is the earliest you've woken up in a month. Whew, okay. Well, it's good to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. So if we are doing an open market operation, it has to be buying and selling bonds. If there is an answer choice where it's like they change the required reserve ratio or they change the discount rate, it can't be that because the question says it's an open market operation. So it has to be buying and selling bonds. The question is it buying or selling? To reduce unemployment, that means they must be doing expansionary policy. Expansionary policy with open market operations is buying bonds. So it says the correct answer is buying bonds to decrease the interest rate to increase aggregate demand. And that is the relationship. If you buy bonds, money supply shifts to the right, interest rates fall, aggregate demand increases as businesses take out more loans because it's cheaper to do so. The next question. Poop. Okay, I can't see the chart that I have. Whatever it was option E. I guess I could pull it up. Perhaps. It just might take a little bit. Nope, that's not what I want. I want to preview. Okay. While this is loading, how's everyone doing? Is everyone okay? Okay, this question. Oh, I love this question. This question is a question that you would have gotten on 17. That's way more than 5. I know. Hello, Gianna. How's life? Olin, you're baking? Is that like code? Zach, how you doing? Michelle, Jay, Krista, I'm at work. Krista, where do you work? Are you essential? Krista, where do you work? Okay, so this question about there was a sticky buns, a daycare. Ugh, gross. I made some really good MFS oatmeal chocolate chip cookies the other day. Oh, that's very nice, apparently. Hi, Jacob. Hi, Jacob. Everybody say hello. And you didn't save me any. Oh, at Emma. Well, whatever. Okay, let's go back to the quiz. Oh, hello. Zach says hello. Emma says hello. There's just a little delay in me showing you. And
to me?
I guess, yes.
Hello, students, former students.
Okay. Let's get back on track. Quiz. This question, I love this question. This question I always have on the monetary policy exam right around now. Like you would have had this question and it would have been like, I forget which, where it like lies on the test, but it's always good. Okay. It says, there's a table and it says, assume that banks hold no excess reserves. A decrease in the required reserve ratio will cause total reserves in banks, the money multiplier, and the money supply to change in which of the following ways? Okay. This is a multi-step question, and it says a decrease in the required reserve ratio. All right, so let's just pretend the required reserve ratio was 20% and it changed to 10%. Because we can figure out what happens to the money multiplier right away. Because you can just make the money multiplier equations and see what happens to the money multiplier. And so if the RR is 20%, the money multiplier is 1 over 0.2, which is 5. If the required reserve ratio is 20%. If the RR changes from 20% to 10%, now it's going to be 1 over 0.1, which is 10. So if you decrease the required reserve ratio, the money multiplier in this example went from 5 to 10. So money multiplier increases. So that second column of what happens to the money multiplier should have it increasing. So that gets rid of B and that gets rid of D. Okay, what happened? Well, what about money supply? If you decrease the required reserve ratio, that's expansionary monetary policy. And expansionary monetary policy increases money supply. That's the whole purpose of expansionary monetary policy, is that it increases money supply. So the last column of what happens to money supply should also be increase. So that gets rid of C. So we're left down to A or E, I believe. Yeah. So what happens to total reserves? It's either going to increase or it's going to no change. And to answer this question, you kind of have to go back to the very first part of this problem. It says, assume that banks hold no excess reserves. Okay, so we have assets, liabilities. And right now we have, I don't know, we have required reserves. Okay, required reserves and excess reserves. Okay. And that's total reserves. And right now the bank holds no excess reserves. Excess reserves is 0. Okay, we have to have some money in here. So I'm just going to throw out a number. I'm going to say like someone deposited $100. And remember I had an example of 20% RR, which means the required reserves is $20. And that other 80 must be somewhere else because it's not in excess reserves because it says that there's nothing in excess reserves. Okay, so and it says there's a decrease in the required reserve ratio. Remember we made an example just now with the money multiplier being it's now 10%. 10%. So now only $10 needs to be in here. What happened to the other 10? If we take money out of required reserves that doesn't need to be there anymore, it's going to go into excess reserves. So it started off with no excess reserves, but now there's 10 in excess reserves because there used to be $20 here, but now we only need to keep 10% of this number. So now there only needs to be 10 here. So the other 10 got moved to excess reserves. Of course, the question's asking, what's happening to total reserves? Total reserves is required plus excess. At the beginning of this question, there's $20 in required reserves and nothing in excess. Now there's 10 in each, which is still 20 in total reserves. It just got moved from required to excess, but total change is the same. The total reserves are still the same because you just moved from one section to the other. And so I like this question a lot because it requires a little bit of kind of making your own bank balance sheet. But then also it is also like you can guess and get this question right because you can get the second and third column easy. It's that first column that's kind of complicated, but it is E, total reserves, no change, money multiplier increases, and the money supply increases. So there's that. Okay, how is that question? I know that was really long, but there it is. Okay, let's go to the next question. I have to get out of what I was in and go back. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here's another question that more people got this wrong than got it right, and that's an issue. Okay. It says, and I know why people got it wrong. Like, it's not the people that got it wrong knew 90% of what they were talking about, but they missed one little thing. Renegade, if you love bank balance sheets. Okay, assume that the reserve requirement for demand deposits is 20%. That banks hold no excess reserves and the public holds no currency. If the central bank sells $10,000 worth of government securities to the central bank, commercial banks, the total money supply will. Okay, so it gives you buying and selling of bonds, it changes bonds, and it tells you like what's going to be the change in money supply. So it's going to be that money multiplier question. Change in excess reserves times M equals change in money supply. Okay, so what happens to excess reserves? The money multiplier and change in money supply. And it's asking about this one. So let's figure out what the money multiplier is going to be. It looks like the required reserve ratio is 20%. So that's 1 over 0.2, which is 5, is a money multiplier. And most people got it correct, meaning they took that entire bond amount. They didn't take any percent out. They took that entire $10,000 times 5 to get $50,000. But most people got an answer choice of $50,000. But unfortunately, they said money supply is going to increase by $50,000. But look at the question again. It says the central bank sells $10,000. Selling is contractionary monetary policy, selling bonds. And so selling bonds contracts money supply. It doesn't increase by $10,000. It decreases by $10,000. So it's negative 10 times 5. So it should be a decrease of $50,000, not an increase of $50,000. So because selling is contractionary, not expansionary. Okay. Any other question? We're good. Okay. This next question is very similar, but this time it's a cash deposit, and the majority of you guys did really well. 75% of people got this one right. It says, assume that the reserve requirement is 20%. The bank has no excess reserves. Someone deposits $10,000 in cash. What's the maximum of that they can loan out? So this is, I can loan out 80% of my $10,000 because I have to keep 20% in the bank at all times. So 80% of $10,000 is $8,000, and the majority of you guys got that right. Some people wrote 2,000, some people, 15% said 2,000. No, that's the money you can't touch. 2,000 is required reserves. The other can be put into excess. So it's what's left over after you take out the required reserves. Okay, next question. Summer says, I guess the reason I thought that this was since it was the central bank selling that the commercial banks were buying. Okay, commercial banks don't do monetary policy. It's the central bank that does monetary policy. It's the Federal Reserve. And so the central banks, it's the central bank's perspective. It is whether they are buying and selling, not whether commercial banks or you are buying and selling. They're the ones that do policy, not Chase, not Wells Fargo, not Bank of America. It's the Federal Reserve Bank. And so it's from their perspective, Summer. That's a common misunderstanding. Thank you for bringing that up. And so it has to be from their perspective. Who is buying and selling? The Fed. Because there's always going to be a buyer or a seller. It's just from one perspective. You have to only look at it from the Federal Reserve perspective. Okay. Next question says, banks expand the money supply when making loans. When they make loans, that's the whole excess reserves times the money multiplier. They are loaning out all their excess reserves times that money multiplier. That's going to give us more money supply, and that is how they change money supply. I love that 5% of people put printing money. That tells me that they have not watched these videos at all. I have not talked about printing money at all, not mentioned it once. And so the fact that they wrote that, answered that, this just tells me they have no clue what they're doing. So, whatever. those people will be taking economics again in college for sure. Okay. Which of the following shifts money demand to the right? This one was another most missed question. Majority of people got it right, but the majority was 45%. The other percentages were kind of split evenly between all of the other answers. So I feel like it was most of a guess for some people. So which of the following shifts money demand curve to the right? So what increases your money demand, your demand for money? Oh, Jay has a question really quick before I move on. It says, how do they sell bonds? I've never seen a bondsman selling or buying bonds from the public. It's because it's done from like the Federal Reserve to banks. So here's the Fed, and here's like your Bank of America or your Chase or wherever you bank, Wells Fargo, and they're buying and selling, like the Fed is buying and selling bonds to this bank. And then it changes their excess reserves. So they're not directly buying and selling it to you. They can. You can go on like E-Trade or what's another one? Do you know what's like where you can buy and sell bonds, like E-Trade or Scottrade, all those. Yeah. They're all like websites and stuff. You can buy a bond, but they're going to be doing the majority of their monetary policy, buying and selling bonds between banks from the Fed and other commercial banks. Yeah. It's not like hello, no, they're not going to walk in and be like, I would like to buy a bond. No. Okay. So back to this question. Which of the following shifts money demand curve to the right? What increases your money demand? A lot of people said an increase of interest rates, which is absolutely incorrect. In fact, that's the only really, I mean, there's several wrong answers here, but that's the only one that is so wrong. Like that's the most wrong answer. But a lot of people, 30% of people wrote that. Whatever is on the y-axis can't shift the curve. I can't say that more. Whatever is on the y-axis of a graph cannot shift the curve. It changes after the shift, but it is not the thing that causes the shift. So money demand shifting to the right raises interest rates, but a change of interest rates does not change money's supply or demand. But, and this was kind of from a previous question, if there's a raise of prices, you're going to need more money. So the answer was an increase in the price level, not interest rates, because price level shifting, like increasing because maybe aggregate demand shifted to the right. And there's higher prices because, I don't know, we're in a period of expansion and prices are going up. You're going to need more money if things cost more. That's how it works. So it's like, oh, it's $10. Okay, I need $10. Oh, but now it's $20 because prices have gone up. Okay, now I'm going to need more money. It's almost like you're saying needing more money. That's a right word shift of money demand. More demand for money because prices are higher. The next question, most people got it right. It says there's an excess in demand of loanable funds market. Which of the following will occur? This is a simple graphing question. You shift demand for loans to the right. Interest rates are going to go up, and the majority of people got that right. Yeah. And this next question, which I think has a table associated with it. It's got to because it says refer to the table. Okay. It is a bank balance sheet question, and it has, let me write the bank balance sheet again. Assets, liabilities, deposits are $100,000. Required reserves is $20,000. Excess reserves is $10,000. And loans are $70,000. Okay, and it says, what's the max amount of new loans that the bank could lend out? New loans, and only 90% of people actually went for the loan. This is already loaned out. That's why it's called loans. But the question says new loans, meaning what's in excess reserves? That's what it's saying, and which is $10,000. They can loan out $10,000 because that's what's in excess reserves. You're not going to add these two together. You're not going to touch required reserves. It's only what's in excess reserves. So $10,000. Not too hard of a question. Most people got it right. And our last question, most people got it right. It says expansionary monetary policy can affect the economy through which of the following chain of events? Basically, it's saying what are the tools of expansionary monetary policy. So there's only one correct answer because all the other ones have either fiscal policy in it or it's contractionary or whatever, but it should be buying bonds, which increases the money supply, which lowers the interest rate, which raises investment spending. And you could even go on and says, which raises aggregate demand, which shifts, 80 to the right, raises price level, raises GDP, lowers unemployment, things like that. But it had to be, whatever. It had to, it had to be monetary policy. I think there was one that was correct, but it was fiscal policy, and that can't be right. Okay. Questions, comments on this whole end of the quiz thing before we mention combining fiscal and monetary policy, which it can be tricky. It can be tricky. But honestly, I think the combining fiscal monetary policy is more suited towards multiple choice questions and not like FRQs, which is good for you guys because y'all are only getting FRQs. Questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, concerns? As you are thinking, I'm going to see if Matthew wants to do something really quick. Matthew, what? You want to do your magic trick? No. Oh, okay. Never mind. He does not want to do the magic trick. He did it for D-Kush, but I guess AP Eco doesn't want to, only one show a day, I guess. Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, or concerns? I know, Jacob. Very sad. Okay. Moving on then. All right. What if we want to see it? Hey, Matthew. What? Emma says she wants to see it. Is it all set up? Yes. He's coming.
Happy Earth Day. Oh.
Oh, quick, do it, fix it. Ooh, it's a plant for Earth Day, which is today. Good job, bud.
That was impressive.
Yes. Messed up 2 times.
It's okay. Oh. Zach says, yay. And Jay says, thank you, Matthew. Very cool. And he's gone. Okay. Very cute, Kateable. I know. Okay, so.
Charlie, what's that? Charlie, what is that?
Why would you upset him?
What is that, Charlie?
I can't get him. I'm in the way. I don't know.
It's okay, Charlie.
Okay, so we're going to move on to combining fiscal and monetary policy. How many of you have actually done the assignment yet, like watched the video lecture yesterday? For yesterday. That was me combining fiscal and monetary policy and like, do we know short run, long run, and like what happens to price level and okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple questions, and you guys can look at your notes or whatever, and then type in an answer. Okay, so here's the first question, and this is like quiz that I would have given you like in class. I'll probably do very similar types of questions for your end of the week quiz, but I've given this quiz in class, and here are some of the questions. So if I say like if Congress, I'm going to write it and show it to you. If Congress lowers taxes and at the same time the Fed buys bonds, what happens to interest rates? If the Federal Reserve lowers taxes, If Congress lowers taxes and the Federal Reserve buys bonds. So you have to figure out what type of policy. This is fiscal, this is monetary. Is that expansionary? Is that contractionary? Is that expansionary? Is that contractionary? And then when you know that, what happens to interest rates in that scenario? So it's either going to be like increase, decrease, or indeterminate. Those are your only three answer choices: increase, decrease, or indeterminate. So Congress lowers taxes, Federal Reserve buys bonds. What happens to interest rates? What do you think? Increase, decrease, indeterminate. Got a couple people that have answered. Give you about 10 more seconds, which is not very long, but I don't want it to be like super dead air for a long time. Okay, got a few people that say decrease, got a few people say indeterminate. Jacob, let me go grab my blue folder cheat sheet. Fall semester kids. Jacob, are you fall or spring? I don't even remember anymore. My time is like, I don't even remember. Yeah, fall semester kids had a really good review book that we made at the end of the semester. Okay. Congress lowering taxes is expansionary fiscal policy. The Federal Reserve buying bonds is expansionary monetary policy. If they both are expansionary, you know what happens in the short run. The economy will expand. Aggregate demand will shift to the right. Price level and GDP will both go up. Unemployment will fall. But if I know what happens in the short run, I don't know what happens in the long run. Interest rates are indeterminate because expansionary fiscal policy creates the idea of crowding out, which raises interest rates. Monetary policy, expansionary monetary policy, lowers interest rates. And I don't have no idea which effect is going to be bigger. And so I don't know if, increasing money supply, which lowers interest rates, is going to have a bigger effect, or expansionary deficit spending is going to have a bigger effect on interest rates. But I know that interest rates, I know that I don't know what's going to happen to interest rates. It's indeterminate. Okay, new question. What happens to unemployment if Congress lowers spending and the Fed raises the discount rate? My question is, what's going to happen to the unemployment rate? Is it going to go up, down, or is it indeterminate? Congress lowers spending and the Federal Reserve raises the discount rate. We got down, we got up, up. Go up, indeterminate. Up, increase. Okay, we got a little mixed answers here. Most people saying up, some people saying indeterminate, some people saying up and down. Okay, so Congress lowers spending. Is that expansionary or contractionary fiscal policy? If they lower government spending, it should be contractionary fiscal policy, because that would slow down the economy if the government lowers its spending. The Federal Reserve raising the discount rate, is that expansionary or contractionary monetary policy? Raising the discount rate is contractionary monetary policy. They're both going to contract the economy, which means aggregate demand shifts to the left, prices fall, GDP falls, but unemployment, that goes up. So the correct answer here is up. that it increases. This is going to be based off of whether it's expansionary or contractionary. So price level, GDP, unemployment, aggregate demand, those are all short run things that all go together. And then interest rates and long run economic growth is a long run thing, and those go together. Okay, one more. Congress Here we go. You tell me. Congress writes a $1,200 check for every household, and the Federal Reserve buys bonds. Very realistic. Tell me what happens to long run economic growth. Congress writes a $1,200 check to every household in America, and the Federal Reserve buys bonds. What happens to long run economic growth? We got a couple people that have answered. Okay, most people, I think almost everyone, has that indeterminate, which is exactly right. That's a little scary. If Congress writes a check for $1,200 to every family household, that creates a deficit. A deficit spending, raises interest rates because of the crowding out effect. There's more demand for loans, or you could say there's less supply of loans available for everyone else, which raises the interest rate, which lowers economic growth. But the Fed buying bonds is expansionary monetary policy, and that lowers interest rates, which makes economic growth more. Like there's more economic growth. So one hurts the economy, like long run economic growth in the long run. One helps the economy with long run economic growth. So what happens to long run economic growth? I have no idea, because deficit spending hurts us in the long run, while lower interest rates with buying bonds helps us in the long run. Long run economic growth, not a clue. Not a clue. They're both expansionary, but since they're both expansionary, I don't know what happens in the long run. If they're both contractionary, once again, I wouldn't know what happens in the long run. You either know one or the other. You don't know both. You can't know short run effects and long run effects. You know one or the other, which is, awesome. But yes, long run economic growth is indeterminate. All right. Are there any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, or concerns before we head on out and I don't see you guys until Friday? You guys have I just posted, did I just do that just now or did I do that last night? I don't remember. I just posted your completion grade for the week, which is a little FRQ, practice FRQ like we did last week. And then we'll do an end of the week quiz like we did last week over fiscal and monetary policy. We're done with like new information. We have learned everything. Jay asked, would you say the stimulus check is Trump's way of starting the nationwide game of Monopoly? Well, if that's the case, can I be the top hat and land on the what's the parking space where you get all the free parking, where you get all the money in the middle? That's the deal. Oh no, the dog's about to bark. Someone's at the door.
Charlie, you missed it.
Oh. Who is it? Is
I
it
don't know.
UPS?
No, they just went to the door and left.
Oh, that's creepy. Okay. I hope I get Boardwalk. No, Boardwalk's a joke. Everyone thinks that Boardwalk's the way to be. But no, there's only 2 spaces. No one ever lands on them. and it takes $1 billion to buy like houses and hotels there. No, you gotta get all the cheap stuff in like the Baltic Avenue. Like that's where you gotta be. Race cars going to Park Place. I want Park Place. No, Park Place is a joke. You got to get the reds. You got to get the yellows. Don't get the dark blues. Even the browns, those are okay too. Even though because they're cheap. I have never won. Of course, don't listen to me. I've never won a game of Monopoly in my life. This one right here, every single time. Every single time. I don't get it. Okay. So does anyone else have, Michelle's asking, how's the review going to work? I hate to reinvent the wheel because there's so many review things out there. I am thinking of having like a Google Meet for small groups, depending, like you sign up and you show up. I don't know how that's going to work. I'm still thinking, because we don't start review until next week. So psych, it's like you either know definitions or you don't. Like, go, here's a Quizlet, go. But with eco, you need to practice. So we'll be doing some practices. We'll probably do a Google Meet where I can do like we can do FRQs together. This is small group. You're right. This is small group. God, gets a chance card with property upgrades. He's screwed. Oh, Jacob. Okay, so there's like College Board has like live sessions every single day where they have eco teachers come in and review. Those are good. There's Khan Academy. That's really good. This is not going to be a thing where I hold your hand and we're going to do everything together. And you won't be reviewing unless you're reviewing with me. You guys need to take initiative and go out there. There's Khan Academy. There is speak words. There's like the AP, like College Board website itself, where they have every released FRQ and all the questions and all the answers. There is... Oh, I've got all these tabs. Hold on. How do I just look? Don't forget, Mr. Clifford has a really good website and like a review packet. I'm going to be posting a packet tomorrow. Who is like at the door? Okay, I got to go. Someone's here and I'm pretty sure it's something for me. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.